Hello there everyone, Eddie Bowley here, aka Eddache. Here I am in a non-animated form. I guess this is just a kind of bonus video, just to celebrate the fact that How to Solve Who Shot Mr. Burns has just hit 1 million views, which is crazy. Thank you so much guys for watching and supporting. This is like the second time ever on my channel that I hit 1 million views. I never thought I'd actually ever get it again. I considered Jurassic Shark to be kind of a fluke. Like, I mean, I was very happy with it. I'm very proud of the results of it, and I knew, I felt we did a really good job of it. But, I didn't anticipate it would get currently like 4 million views. So, and equally, I never expected to really ever hit 1 million on my channel again. So to do so like very recently and very quickly, it's just awesome. Like in 2017, I made the conscious effort to make a video once every 3 weeks, and then when I realized the views weren't great, I decided to sort of change direction. Now I know views aren't everything. You should just be happy doing whatever you like, but I felt that if nobody was really watching what I was doing, then it's not really, I didn't really find that very rewarding. I put a lot of time and effort into, let's just say, some of the videos. Some of them were lazier than others, but I sort of made a genuine effort, and since I felt the views never really matched the level of effort that went into the videos, I thought, well, okay, maybe one, people don't like what I'm doing, and two, maybe people are here for a different reason. Obviously, a lot of people, I felt, came over from the stuff I do with Tom Scar and on Dark Squidge, and so they're kind of here for me. They're here for me and my personality, and they weren't getting that with the videos I was then making. So I had to kind of rethink and thought, well, what videos am I actually watching on YouTube? What are the videos that I'm currently, what are the videos I'm currently tuning into? And I realized the videos I was mainly watching was stuff like video essays and animated story times. So I thought, well, okay, let's merge those two together and have an animated character do video essays whilst also interjecting, like personal anecdotes and like little side jokes here or there. And my first effort with that was How to Solve Who Shot Mr. Burns, and well, it worked really well. So I thought, as a little celebratory bonus, I would do a video that would respond to some of the common comments that I got on this video, to kind of discuss some of the things that people are bringing up, and in a couple of cases maybe even debunk, because I guess you'll see. Okay, fine, YouTube, I finally watched it. Now, f*** off. Now, I've seen a lot of people bring up the fact that this video has been cropping up in their recommendations a lot. I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not, because that means more views for me, but I have zero control over what YouTube deems as being worthy of its algorithm. It's not like I pushed YouTube to promote it everywhere, or did some underhand dark web dealings. It just got picked up, and so sorry about that. But while you're here, I hope you enjoy it. It was actually Homer. He just blamed it on Maggie. He even said it in an episode. Okay, so this is in reference to an episode called Revenge is a Dish Best Served 3 Times. Here's a clip.
I'm gonna get my revenge, and if I get caught, I'm pinning it on the baby like the time I shot Mr. Burns.
Dad!
Now, I feel like it's pretty safe to say that this was just a throwaway joke. I don't think this is a big, serious debunk on the original Who Shot Mr. Burns episodes. Now, something worth bearing in mind is that this episode is from Season 18. It's Season 18, Episode 11. And Who Shot Mr. Burns is the finale of Season 6, with Part 2 being the start of Season 7. So this is what's called a retcon. A retcon is, and I did bring this up in the video, a retcon is when a show retroactively alters the continuity of its show. For example, when I actually state, and no retcons, I actually cite the example of The Curse of the Flying Hellfish, which is another one that people kept bringing up of, oh, Mr. Burns would know Grandpa Simpson since they fought in the war together. This is an episode from later in Season 7, and I'm talking about exclusively the episodes that happened prior to Who Shot Mr. Burns. Besides, in Season 2, there's the episode called Old Money, where Mr. Burns actually pleads with Grandpa for his money. And for a second, Grandpa doesn't recognize him, and when he does, he says,
You're that guy who owns the nuclear power plant.
Clearly ownership is divided.
You know, if the retcon was actually, planned ahead in deep lore, then why wouldn't he have just recognized him as being his former compatriot in the war? It obviously doesn't make sense, and you can't count that. Like, you got to imagine, like, if you're watching this episode from the perspective of when it was broadcast in 1995, and you're meant to be able to put together the clues from that perspective, how are you meant to have known something that happened in Season 18? I think it's safe to say that was just a joke. That was just a silly throwaway joke, and not something that we're meant to be taking that seriously. Solve it by watching the episode. So some very clever people pointed out that there is a part 2 of Who Shot Mr. Burns, and you could just watch that to figure out how it's solved. Well done, guys. You missed the point. You missed the whole point of the video I was making. The point I was making was that part 1 is solvable on its own. You don't have to watch part 2 to solve it. And I'm celebrating the fact of how cleverly this is written, how well it's structured, how good a job they did at making a genuine murder mystery. You know? Yes, of course you could just solve it by reading the solution, but my point is, look at the clues they did. Look at the clues they hid in the show that allowed you to genuinely solve it. I just think that's a level of detail that's worth showing appreciation for. So a common complaint I saw people make with this video was, oh, skip to 3 minutes, whatever, to get to the point of the video. And that kind of skips over, my personal anecdotes, and also the whole pitch document part that I mentioned, the Josh Weinstein pitch doc that was released that said part 1 is solvable on its own. So on the one hand, I have taken this as a lesson learned in terms of how to better pace my videos. I guess I was always kind of worried about having like a phone voice, like a kind of a fake presentation voice because you're on show, which doesn't sound natural. So I was very cautious to try and sound like very natural, so I purposely slowed my manner of speech, but in a way that made it too slow, so I've learned to kind of find a better middle ground, hopefully. But on the other hand, I kind of just wanted to do the video my way. As I said, I wanted to show some of my personality in this video and not just kind of blitz through it like a list, I wanted to make this a bit more personal to me. WS means MS means Maggie Simpson. Now, this is interesting. A lot of people are posting this in the comments. I'm not entirely sure why. It could be that I don't actually say this during my kind of finale wrap-up of the video where I say it's Maggie Simpson, this is how she ties into the clues. I guess I didn't feel the need to match her up to every prior clue that I set up. Like, I do a little bit, like I mentioned she's in the photograph, but like, I didn't think I needed to go through every clue and explain how she matches up to it. I think by that point, you get that. But on the other hand, I think it could be that people are saying this because without having watched the video, no, this is how you solve it. It's the sundial. And it's like, I know that. I say this in the video. I say that the sundial points to west and south, but from the perspective of Mr. Burns, it's M and S, which is a clue to the shooter. I literally say this in the video. So I don't know whether these are people pointing it out because I didn't say it explicitly, or pointing it out because they didn't watch the video. But either way, I know about the sundial, guys. I know. It's fine. It's going to be okay. I just have to shout out this comment because I really like this comment a lot. After how weak you pointed out Burns is, and how rich he is, I realized he's a shiny Magikarp. I like that. I like that comment. I'm going to give it a like. There we go. Now, this video is where the theory that Marge was the one who shot Mr. Burns is debunked. So before I did this video, I did explore YouTube just to see how others have approached this subject in the past, and one video series I did see is The Real Jims, of who really shot Mr. Burns, and he theorizes in one of his videos that it's Marge. He also acknowledges that it's just a fun little fan theory, and it's not one to be really taken that seriously. But it's interesting because I've also seen this a lot where people comment, what about Marge? And it's like, well, I mean, it is a fun little theory, but it's clearly not the correct one. I have nothing personally against the real Jims. I will admit I did do a little cheeky little poke fun towards him during the whole bit about, when I did the film theory parody of who really shot Mr. Burns. I am doing a slight little nod to the real Jims as well. But there's no meanness, there's no malicious in there. I even saw a comment from him himself saying, I feel like I'm being attacked. It's like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Also, when the struggle happened, you can hear Maggie sucking on a pacifier. Can you?
They said, drop it. Get your hands off.
Where is everybody?
No. I don't think it was fair to rule out people whose names Mr. Burns didn't know based on the phrase, oh, it's you. If anything, I think someone is more likely to say that to someone whose name they don't know but they do recognize. Okay, so this is a fair point. It is possible that Mr. Burns doesn't have to know their names to recognize them. I mean, it could broadly refer to Willie in the fact that they are part of the Stonecutters together, but I think this is more directly aimed at Homer. The fact that he could still recognize Homer as a person but just not remember his name. Now, I think there's 2 points to this. One, this was the intention of the writers. I think the whole Mr. Burns constantly couldn't remember Homer's name throughout the whole episode. I think that is meant to directly correlate to Mr. Burns recognizing the shooter at the end. I think that is intentional. But on the other hand, I do actually have an example of Mr. Burns not recognizing Homer at all.
That's Homer Simpson, sir.
Simpson, eh? New man?
Actually, sir, he thwarted your campaign for governor. You ran over his son. He saved the plant from meltdown. His wife painted you in the nude.
Doesn't ring a bell.
That was Last Exit to Springfield, Season 4, Episode 17. So again, I know this is a joke. I know this is another one of the throwaway jokes, but it is a genuine example of Mr. Burns not only failing to recognize Homer, but failing to recognize that he even exists. But that's really just a minor, pettier thing. Really, I think it is just an intentional part of the writers to discredit Homer. I also don't feel that Mr. Burns' missing gun tells us that the assailant didn't have a gun. It's plausible that he drew his gun to defend himself and dropped it when he was shot. Again, yes, fair enough. That is a very possible outcome. But I think what's worth bearing in mind is that the missing gun part was such a hidden clue, and it was an intentionally placed one. The fact that you could only see it for a few frames when he falls on the sundial, they were truly relying on the VCR freeze frame tactic. The fact that they hid this so well meant it was significant. So I think it was an intentional part of the writers to say, this is worth noting, the gun is missing. Why would the gun be missing? Because the person who shot Mr. Burns used his own gun against him. So I agree, it's possible that Mr. Burns could have just dropped it in the struggle, but then that would have made that whole point, that whole clue, a red herring. And given the placement of it, doesn't make sense that it would be one. Okay, here's a big one. 021, what's the joke here? So this is in reference to The Problem With The Poo, which is a documentary by Indian comedian Hari Kondabolu. I'm sorry if I got that pronunciation totally wrong. But in the documentary, he raises the point that a poo can be perceived as a racial stereotype. There's a difference between a racial stereotype and a racist stereotype. So whilst Apu isn't a racist character, he is a racial character. His race is part of his identity. Now, this is a very deep and complicated issue, and I am not going to go into this. It's still a very worthwhile point that has been raised by the documentary, and it merits discussion. And it's not part of a cancellation thing. It's not like, oh, boo, 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 we should kill the Simpsons for daring to have this character. Like, even the documentarian says, no, I like the show. I'm a fan of the show. It's just, hey, this is a sticking point. Maybe we should discuss this a little bit. Now, Movie Bob has done a fantastic series on this issue, and as Movie Bob raises, no other show like The Simpsons exists. No other show has existed for so long. So, we don't know how to deal with this. You know, this character that has been grandfathered in from the very beginning to basically be a two-dimensional stereotype of a 7-Eleven employee, and is now carried over to being this, you know, more fleshed out character, but also still essentially the sole representation of Indian characters in Springfield. No other character has the same level of personality and characterization than Apu does. There are other Indian characters, but none are as prominent as him. So that's a fair point of discussion. Whether you agree with it or not, it's still a discussion. But what I disliked was the Simpsons' response to it. It was to have Lisa Simpson call it out by saying the words to the effect of, "It was fine in the past, but now it's a problem. And we're not going to deal with this." I just felt that was very tactless, and a lot of people agree with this. I mean, my personal problem with it was the fact that they used Lisa Simpson as the person to say this. Now, historically, Lisa Simpson has been the voice of reason, and this is often parodied as well. She'll come across in times as being very preachy, or sanctimonious, or trying to spark, like, a revolution when there isn't one. Like, there's the example where she tries to play football, and they point out, oh no, we have other girls playing football, and she decides not to play because she doesn't get to have that little accolade of being the first girl. So, this is parodied in her character, but she's still essentially meant to be the voice of reason. And to have her say that line of, "Oh well, we're not going to do anything about it, it's not a problem," just felt a bit gross and not in character. I mean, obviously the Simpsons can do whatever the hell they want. They're the Simpsons, and whether or not you agree about the whole issue of Apu, it's separate. My point is that it's incorrect for Lisa to be the one to say it. To me, it'd be more in character that, say, Lisa is the one that may echo the problem, maybe in a more allegorical sense, like they do in the episode itself. The episode itself is Marge's reading a childhood book, but it realizes it contains a lot of, like, problematic themes and characters, so she tries to rewrite it. Now, say Lisa is the one who discovers the book. I'm being hypothetical here. This is going to be rubbish, but, like, say Lisa discovers the book, points out the flaws in a kind of allegorical echoing of what the documentary with The Problem with Apu is saying, and then someone like Homer bluntly saying, "Oh no, it's fine. We're not gonna deal with that." I don't know. Something like that feels more in character. Even if they treat Lisa as being in the wrong, it still sounds more like in character for Lisa to be the one who would actually agree with the sentiment of the documentary, even if the showrunners themselves disagree with it and could still tease or parody or poke fun at it. Ultimately, I don't think what The Simpsons did was cruel to the documentary. I still think it was tactless, it was kind of thoughtless, but I don't think it was done with true malicious in mind. And this bit, I was going to have a more aggressive attack on that part, but when I saw Max Gilardi's Hot Diggity Demons brain dump on the video, the Apu I Know, I decided to recompose my thoughts and put out a slightly more tempered, more measured response to it. So while I still disagree with what The Simpsons did in response to the documentary, I still felt that my aggression towards it wasn't merited, so I calmed it down a bit. Oh, and by the way, calm down. They haven't actually said that Apu is leaving the show. Please stop getting mad. That's not officially confirmed, okay? Woo! Okay, deep subject, moving on. Suppressors don't actually silence gunshots that much. That's a Hollywood invention. Okay, I'll have to take your word on that. I'm not a gunshotologist, as I say, but I feel like, again, that was an intentional part of the makers of the show to show that Skinner had a silencer, therefore it's meant to disprove that it was him. Maybe it doesn't truly silence a gunshot. I don't actually know. I will take your word on it, but again, I think that was an intentional clue. Wow, the grammar on Burns verkaufen der Kraftwerk is horrible. It should be Burns verkauft das Kraftwerk. Okay, again, I'll take your word on that, but that is just the title of the episode. That's what they called it. Take it up with them, not me. Incidentally, just as a fun fact, I had to watch, I believe it was 62 episodes of The Simpsons to do the whole rewatching the old episodes to figure out if there were ever any points that Mr. Burns met up with Grandpa Willie, Moe, or Barney. And that was a lot of fun. That was a really fun exercise to do, genuinely. I would watch them at like 1.5 speed, so it'd only ever take me 15 minutes to get through one episode. But like, that really wasn't a bad exercise to do. It was a lot of fun, just watching classic Simpsons episodes. It was a good time. I remember seeing this episode 2 times, and once it was Smithers, or what's his name, and the second one was Maggie. Now, there seems to be a weird little element of confusion here. There was an episode later in Season 7 called The Simpsons 138th Episode Spectacular, and really it was just a clip show to show deleted scenes. And within it, they showed the alternate ending of Who Shot Mr. Burns, where it was Smithers. And they do clearly flag this as being, this is an intentionally wrong ending. When the creators made Who Shot Mr. Burns, they made alternate endings so that the animators and the voice actors and the team wouldn't give away who actually done it, because they did really want to generate a big hype for this whodunit. So they intentionally made a fake ending that was never intended to be broadcast, and that ending is the Smithers ending. But this seems to be now like misremembered as being one of the actual endings, because some people are like, oh, I could have sworn it was Smithers, like almost as if they broadcast different endings in different parts of the country or something like that. There is a movie that did that though. There's a movie called Clue. And that's another whodunit movie, and they had 3 endings, and which ending you got depended on which cinema you saw it in. They had multiple endings. That's really cool. But in this instance of The Simpsons, no. It was one ending. It was always Maggie. And the fake ending, the Smithers ending, was purely there to misdirect the people behind the scenes from leaking the correct answer. Okay, so I'm going to call it a day there. Thank you so much, everyone who watched How to Solve Who Shot Mr. Burns and appreciated it. I realize I was picking on a lot of the people who were like nitpicking and giving me their actuallys, but I do want to emphasize how happy I am with how this video came out and the glowing response to it I had from people. I think in a way it regenerated a level of appreciation of classic Simpsons. And as I said, I've taken some lessons from this. You know, if I were to make this video again, I would probably try to shave it down by like 3 or 4 minutes. But I'm still happy with the result of it, and I'm happy that people enjoyed it so much enough to watch it 1,000,000 times. Like, I've seen some people say that they watched it, you know, multiple times. They just sit there and rewatch it like 4 or 5 times. And it's like, what are you getting out of this? What are you getting out of this video with so many repeated watches? But, I mean, thank you. Thank you. So just to reassure you, I am still definitely making these types of videos, these little video essays that just kind of show levels of appreciations of little things, major things, whatever things. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. I have a Patreon if you wouldn't mind checking that out. And my Twitter, I'm very, very frequent on Twitter, so that's probably a very good place to keep tabs on what I'm up to. But apart from that, thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you next time.